We have a special guest, Michele Ziolkowski, and her husband Abdullah, and we'll be speaking to Michele about the book that she wrote, The Boy Who Knew the Mountain. Michele, first up, what was the inspiration for this fabulous children's book?
The main inspiration is my son, Sahel. Sahel's 11, actually he'll be 12 in January. Sahel is also autistic, and this book really it encapsulates Sahel as an individual, and it highlights some of his challenges, but it really highlights his unique abilities, and that does come from his autism. Sahel has an amazing sense of direction. He has a very, very good memory, and the story came about from just visiting the mountains with Sahel ever since he was a small baby, and it's one of our favourite places to visit. So it was almost like an adventure playground for Sahel, walking through the old stone village and wandering through the wadis. I remember on one particular family trip, Sahel turned to Abdullah and I and he said, water. And we were like, oh, okay. And so he took our hands and he led us down to the water spring in the wadi, in the valley. And
had you been there before?
No. So he just instinctively knew where to go. Yeah. My mother-in-law was born in this village. It's in Fujairah, Wadi Al-Hail, and my mother-in-law had told us stories about her childhood, growing up in the village, and as I said, it's just a place that's very close to all of our hearts. As an archaeology student, I spent 5 weeks studying rock art at Wadi Al-Hail. Yeah. So we all have close ties to this village, and it's just a very peaceful and calm environment, one which Sahel thrives in. Okay. With his autism, cities, crowds can be quite overwhelming, like as a sensory experience. When there's too much light or too much noise, it can cause Sahel to cover his ears, and he doesn't like those situations. They get a bit overwhelming for him. Whereas being in nature, especially in the mountains, he's very peaceful, he's very calm, and he just loves being there. And so that's how the story came about, really. It's Sahel's story, mixed in with all of our experiences in the mountains. So we put all of that together.
So it's your family story. It's
in a way. Yes.
You've got your mother-in-law and her traditions, and then your son's traditions, which is lovely. When did you actually put pen to paper? Like, when did you decide, what was that? I know you've had the inspiration from all your stories as a family, and Sahel and his experiences in Fujairah, but as you said, you were an archaeologist, and a mother, and doing all this, to actually say, this story has to be told. What was that trigger that, because a lot of people want to write a book, a lot of people want to do a movie, but they never put that pen to paper. What was that moment that you were like, I have to do this?
I think, as you mentioned, I'm an archaeologist, and writing a book for children is difficult. Yeah, it's not easy. I think a lot of people may assume it is easy, but finding the right pitch, the right tone, it's difficult. But I have to say, the story just came to me. It really did. All of those components came together, and as soon as the story formed in my mind, I just put pencil to paper. I jotted the whole first draft down in one go, in one sitting.
I believe you.
Obviously it's been edited numerous times, but the initial storyline that I jotted down that first day, that stayed the same. And they always say you should write about what you know, and then writing it just flows. And it's true, because I do feel as though I know Sahel quite well.
Oh, yeah, the book it's very raw and very real, and you feel it, and you can see that everything that happens has happened.
Yes, it really has. It's true.
Yeah. The one thing that when I cried was the hands on the ears, and you said that was something Sahel will do, and
he does do that.
And it's like you just can see that, and it was such a touching moment. The story flows so nicely to that point, and then when you get that point, so well done. The book's fantastic. It is a great book. When you were doing the book or reading the book, were you talking with Sahel about it, or how did you tell him about, how was that experience with when you were writing it about him? Was he aware when you were doing it, or did you get him involved? And I just want to know about that.
I did read early drafts to Sahel as bedtime stories, and he likes to reply at a certain point in the story where the character says, "My name is Suhail."
Yeah.
So early on, when I was reading him a draft, which actually did contain illustrations, sort of rough sketches.
Yeah.
It came to that point in the story, and I sort of paused, and I said, "My name is," and Suhail said, "Suhail." And I think that's the moment I realised that he knew that the story was about him, that this is his story. Yeah. And but funnily enough, I think Suhail's favourite book is The Cow Who Fell in the Canal. Not this book.
Maybe we should do a reading later of that book. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, he actually knows that one off by heart.
Amazing.
Suhail loves books. Yeah. And I think that was also a nice way for us to connect
through the book.
Yeah. With Suhail, and knowing that this is his story, and he does know that the book is about him.
Yeah.
And even I did a book reading at Suhail's school early on. Yeah. With Suhail was there with I think about 20 students from his school. And again, at that particular moment in the book, he called out his name, "My name is Suhail."
That's so lovely.
So, he knows it's about him, and it has been a nice way to connect with Suhail. Yeah. It's also been a really good way to spread some awareness, and awareness with children. Yeah. As you mentioned the point in the book where Suhail covers his ears, and Suhail does do that at times in public, especially in like shopping malls or in parks if it's noisy and busy. And I do notice that children will look at him, like sort of and wonder why is he doing that? Yeah. And the nice thing is I can now reach that audience because I've been doing book readings in schools, community events, nurseries, and when that part in the book comes up, children really they're focused and they're concentrating and they want to know, okay, why is he doing that? Yeah. Why does Suhail do the things that he does? Yeah. And it makes them, they start to ask questions. Yeah. And then they gain a bit more of an understanding. Yeah. And I mean, it's all about creating this understanding and an accepting community. Yes. Because our children with autism will grow up to be adults with autism.
No, within the communities. And I think it's as one thing that stood out about this book for us was that it is a family book. And it is for the whole family. Like, it's not just written for the child's brain or any child. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they both love listening to it. Oh, that's great. And then me and my husband love reading it, right? So I love reading it because it reminds me to be aware and conscious of other people, that other people are sensitive to certain things. And so it's important that these kind of books are out there for families to read and have in their household to share with their family members. Abdullah, I wanted to know if you faced any cultural barriers when educating people about Suhail's journey.
To be honest, as general, it happens everywhere. Yeah. I mean, not only in UAE, in every society, in every country. Yeah. When you're facing something you never used to it, you keep away. I mean, for example, most of our people here, they prefer to hiding their children when they realize that they have a type of disability. They try to hiding them. Sometimes they talk about bad eyes or evil eyes, and sometimes you hear it from part of your family. Don't take him to the people, what they will say about this thing, can they understand him, or maybe they will put him in a bad situation, all this. You face it sometime in the supermarket, in the street. Once on my way out from one of the supermarket, and usually when we go to any shopping mall, he was looking for two things, the DVD, or chocolate, sparkling water. We pick up. In our way into the supermarket, I said, look, let's make a deal. You will have only one DVD. And he said, okay. And I know that's how the story always starts. We go in there and he decided, and he took two. And I thought he took one. Okay. When we reached the cashier, he put 2 DVD. And he said, hey, we said 1 DVD, 1 chocolate, and 1 sparkling water. He started screaming, what you call lie down or on his back.
Flop on the floor.
Yeah. And I ignore him. This is one of the way how you deal with it. Just stand there, ignore him. one old local lady, boss, me, she started shouting at me, "You have no mercy in your heart. It's your son. Why you bring these children to this life if you don't know how to take care of them?" I ignored her the first time.
Yeah.
Then she started to shout.
And Suhail's shouting,
She tried
making
to-
probably worse.
She tried to help.
escalate the situation.
Yeah, she started to help Suhail.
Yeah.
And lots of people around me, they started staring at you.
Yeah.
And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, do one thing. He's my child.
Yeah.
Would you mind, please, to keep away?
Yeah.
Just go away." There is no time
Yeah.
to explain to her what's going on.
Yeah.
You face it in a lots of people eyes every time you go out. The way he moves his hand sometimes, the way he asks you to give him squeeze. Squeeze me once, twice, 3, 10, again another 10 squeeze, 20 squeeze. You will do it.
Yeah.
But people, some of them they understand, but most of the people they don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
It will take time. I mean, 20 years ago it was more difficult.
Yeah.
These days it will be more easy with all the education, school, media. There is a good interesting really from the government
It's great.
in this. It's not easy to the parent, and it will not be easy along the way.
Have you had anyone in your family beforehand with autism or dealt with it before Suhail, or was this the first time in your lives or in your families? Was it? Yeah.
From my family, yes, this is the first instance, and
Abdullah, had anyone in your family had?
You know, when after 2 years, and we start to ask this question: what's going on with Suhail?
Yeah.
Why stop talking? You know, every society, every country, they have their own story. My mom insists, the rest of the family said, "Your nephew Abdullah, he started to speak when he was 5.
Okay.
Just wait.
Yeah.
I thought it's different than what Abdullah was facing. My mom sometimes said, "Why don't you give him a coffee? That will help him to speak." But we couldn't really realize till maybe 2.5 years that there's something not well with this guy.
How did then, when you found out, and then you went to your family members, so your mom, your sisters, your brother, and you told them that Suhail had autism, how did you then, because they had never dealt with this as well, then the education, what was that process like? Or, as you said, your mum would say, give him a coffee. Did she continue did they continue on this thought, or was it, okay, now we understand, or was it an educational process for the whole family?
it was definitely an educational process for everyone, us included. My parents have been amazing. They come and visit as often as they can, and they're so good with Suhail. My mum was a school teacher, so she'll sit down and do little activities with Suhail. And my dad is really great. He takes Suhail out on the bike, swimming, and again climbing in the mountains and all sorts of sort of more activity-based outdoor activities. So they're great, and they but for all of us it has been a huge learning curve. And but there's been nothing negative. My whole family has just been really very supportive.
It's really great to have you actually speak. I'm really honoured and grateful, because, as you said, when other people of cultures that hide, it's not, as you said, it's not only here, because I've seen it in Poland, I've seen it in Europe, but people hide their children if they have certain difficulties, and the only way you're right, as a community, we will grow is if these children are with us, because it's a full community. It's the reality of real life, and if you hide them, it's not reality.
Inclusion.
And so it is right. It's changing.
And let me also add one thing, that in UAE, for example, there is a good interest from the government to put a new school for autistic people. We do a lot of things, but in the same time, we have also a different thing in UAE. In UAE, we have around 150 nationalities.
That
make it more difficult. That make it more difficult. Sometimes it's make more easy if you deal with a well-educated people who came from outside and they're facing the same trouble. They know how to deal with these children. But in the same time, you have lots of people came from a country, they're facing the same trouble with the society, the mentality
to hide
it.
Yeah, and they're embarrassed and ashamed.
It doesn't make it easy for you.
Yeah, and I think this is where it's so great that you've written this book, because it connects with the locals and this community, and by going to all these schools, because as you say, you're educating through a book other families and other cultures by going to all these places, because a lot of these schools now are multicultural, and at least they can go to their parents or their families and say, we read this book about, and hopefully those kids can educate. Or so it's a big task, but I think this book does it so well.
I've had good feedback from school teachers and from the parents as well. One of the things that the parents often comment on is that the book is actually set in the UAE. And the characters have names like Moza and Aisha.
And they connect with those names.
Yes, and for the children, actually, that's really important to make that connection.
Exactly. They're not just looking at some white kid from some other... They have the connection. They need that to change. They don't feel like it's them.
The characters, the setting, everything.
Yeah.
But, I mean, adding on from what Abdullah has said, I have actually seen a positive shift in attitudes within the community in the UAE towards people with or people of determination or special needs in general. I mean, when we first, let's say I was younger, there was a lot less, awareness, or even sort of publicity, for people with, either physical or developmental challenges. Now, that has increased dramatically. I mean, I think with the Special Olympics coming,
which is super. I'm so excited about this. That's such a
I mean, I do see attitudes changing, and I mean, Abdullah's right. There are times when we go out in the community, and Sahel might, he might get excited, and when he does, he'll hand flap, or he'll squeal with delight, because he's happy.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's his experience,
and he doesn't hide from who he is,
and he shouldn't. Like, he should be, and people just need to understand it
because he's 100% genuine. And that's like children with autism are like that. They don't put up barriers. They're very honest and open. And yes, some people will stare, and some people might also give you, a strange look. And there have been times where I've been in a situation where I've just explained, Sahel has autism, and this is how he reacts to certain things. In other instances, I've actually had people come up to me and say, oh, my nephew has autism.
And they want to talk
to you. And they want to talk. They want to talk about, what their how their nephew is and what challenges he is facing, and or they want to ask about schools or therapy, and it opens up a dialogue, which is really, really helpful for all of us. Because even as parents of a child with special needs, we need other parents to talk to.
Yes, you need to be a part of a community, and and I think. So I'm glad to hear that things are changing for you, and I think other families have to realise, don't hide, you've got to be part of that movement, even if it is...
Especially even the Ministry of Tolerance in the UAE. Recently they had the Tolerance Week, and Al Emirat Park in Abu Dhabi ran a whole week of festivities, including a concert. And it was just so nice to see the families out there interacting and, not hiding their children. It's like, this is my child, and yes, my child is different, and that's okay, and it's all right to be different.
I actually didn't know that happened.
And it always takes me back to the quote by Temple Grandin, a woman from the States who was diagnosed with autism when she was a child in the 1950s. She's not only an autism advocate, but she's a university professor as well. And her quote is different, but not less. And that is, that's included in the story as well. And so it's that whole concept of like, it's all right. It's okay to be different. We're all individuals, and we are all special in our own way.
So one thing that I loved, I just thought about what you were saying about different, I think the great thing about the book is that you see a whole village change their ways for him in a way, and actually it makes you want to be that village, like you really do. You want to be that community that is accepting, and you want, like, you know, because you hear in the book it says how everyone doesn't want him in their villages, and this one village wants him, so they all change and realize it's not him that has to change.
That's right.
It's actually all of you have to change.
That's right.
And your community needs to change, and it's such a powerful. It's the world that actually needs to change. So it's super exciting that we're changing and that we are moving to this age where you can have these books and we can talk about it openly. Well, how is your local support from, like, I know Sharjah does a big book fair, and I know Abu Dhabi is a big book fair, but I know they have, like, awards, don't they, for, like, new up-and-coming authors and children's books. So have you had anyone help you? Has that gone anywhere? Are you doing anything with them?
Well, the book was published by a publishing house in Dubai called Hudhud.
Okay, yeah.
And they put the book into competitions.
Okay, fine.
So we did actually win a book award from the Sharjah Book Authority last year.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, for best children's book in English. That was pretty exciting, though, I've got to say, because the email came to me, it was all in Arabic, so I had to send it to Abdullah and say, can you translate and tell me what this is? Like, you know, what's going on here? And he sent me a message back. He said, oh, you won a Sharjah Book Award. And I went, no, don't mess with me.
Oh, that's
he likes to joke around a lot.
Yeah.
And he said, no, really, you won a Sharjah Book Award. And I was like, oh my God, that's so incredible.
That's amazing.
Completely unexpected, and just really lovely to be recognised in that way. And
this is your home, right? And you are part
it
of
is my home. Yeah, most definitely. I feel at home here.
And it's your culture, and it is your history, and it is your family history. So, so it's really nice that they've recognised it as well. And then it's in English.
It's in Arabic as well.
Oh, brilliant! Okay.
Yeah. The book has also been printed in Braille. By Zayed Higher Organisation out at Mafraq.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's very lovely. So I hear that there is talks about turning this into an animation short film. Where are you with that, and how's that coming along? How are you finding that?
Struggling a little bit, just with the finance side of things. Okay. And I really think the story would work well as an animation, a short film. I also feel as though I want the story to reach a much wider audience. Mm-hmm. I mean, adults and children love animation. Yeah. So I think it's a perfect way to get that message across. And then with this beautiful book, I hear there is a sequel, or actually a trilogy, I hear. How is that going? Where are you with that? And can you give us a little bit about the story, where it will go from here, or a little bit insight into why you decided to go down that? Well, the sequel to The Boy Who Knew the Mountains has gone into production as of today. Oh, brilliant. Congratulations. Yes, thank you. Yeah. And it will be called Suhail's Abu Dhabi Adventure. Okay. Because I want the stories to follow Suhail, to follow his journey. Yeah. So it's basically the second phase in Suhail's story after Fujairah and our moving to Abu Dhabi. Yeah. And just the fact that Suhail has been so amazingly well accepted here in Abu Dhabi, and the school where he's so happy. Yeah. And it's interesting because I saw on Suhail's face, I could see when he started at the New England Centre that everyone there understood him. Yeah. And his whole personality, he relaxed a lot. Yeah. Because I think part of the stress for Suhail is when he's not being understood. Okay. I mean, imagine if you or I couldn't communicate effectively, how frustrating that would be. Of course, you're speaking different languages. Yeah, I can. Yeah. So for him to be understood in school and to be in a really good place, I wanted to sort of emphasize that in the second book as well. And so the second story takes us through Abu Dhabi. And how he deals in the city environment. Yeah, with a new environment. Yeah. So we start off at the customs house at Makta, near Makta, where Makta Bridge is now, but in the new story, there's no bridge. Okay, so this is going back in time. Back in time again, to roughly sort of a pre-oil era, or sort of a mid 20th century. Yes, because you're just following on from him as if you. Oh, brilliant! Oh, lovely. Exactly. That's nice. Like a history and through. That's lovely. A little bit of history, a little bit of archaeology as well. Again, involved. And actually, I do want to create a trilogy because I want the third book to be Suhail's journey back to Fujairah, and you know, for him to come back to Fujairah and to be fully accepted within his family and tribe. And I've already written a first draft for the third book.
Oh, I can't wait.
Which
I want to read it now.
And I want to call it The Journey Home.
Okay, yeah, it's beautiful.
Because I just feel as though it needs to, the story needs to come full circle, and people need to understand that, yes, this is all about acceptance and understanding, and that people do come to understand that Sahel has these unique abilities, and that we need to embrace those.
Yeah. Before we go into a bit more about Sahel, a little bit more, how did you arrive in the UAE?
I was born in Australia, in Sydney. I was studying archaeology at the University of Sydney. Our professor at the time was leading a number of excavations, field trips to the UAE, and that particular season he took 4 undergraduate students. I was one of them. Which was unheard of at the time, because usually they only took postgrad students. We would only come for a winter season, so we'd come for 2 or 3 months over the winter, and I worked in Sharjah and Dubai, and then eventually we worked in Fujairah. And but all those seasons I worked with the University of Sydney, and in Fujairah, Abdullah and I met. So
that was history, Abdullah.
Yes, he's with you.
Tell me a little bit about the illustrator that you used.
Well, Susanna is an Australian as well, and we've known each other for a long time. Susie studied architecture at the University of Sydney.
So is that where you met, or?
Actually, we met I think we met for the first time, yes, maybe at the university. In Sydney, It was a while back. Her husband is an archaeologist, and Susie used to come again every winter season for field work.
Oh, so you guys were here?
At the same time, working at different sites, but still in the Emirates at the same time. And as an architect, she would draw the plans for all the excavations. So when Sahel was born, Susie gave me this beautiful ink drawing of a baby sleeping, and she turned it into a card. And I had it framed. It was just gorgeous, and it always sort of stuck in my mind. And then when the story started to develop, I approached her and I said, you know, would you be interested in illustrating the book? And she said yes, of course. And the first set of sketches that Susie sent to me were perfect. Not only did she understand the story, Sahel, the character,
the region, you know,
but the setting, the environment, everything. I mean, Susie has visited Al Hayl village in the mountains of Fujairah many times, and a number of times with us as well as a family, with her family.
Is there no hope of her doing the animation?
I don't know.
It's a lot of pictures she'd have to draw.
It would be a lot of work.
It takes a whole team. But no, I really think it would work brilliantly as an animation. But I also think it would be brilliant as a film for the region. Kind of reminds me of The Kite Runner. Like there's a lot of like when you read it, and now you told me the trilogy, it could actually work
as a film. Yes, you're right.
It'd be beautiful. Local,
I hadn't thought about that.
As a local film, it would be I think it'd be received very well. Can you tell us a little bit, as a family, when did you? Because Fujairah was your home, and then I guess you had Sahel. And when was it that you noticed that Sahel was different?
Sahel was actually developing in a fairly typical manner. He reached most of his milestones either on time or even early. You know, before his first birthday, he was running. And he was pointing, he was making eye contact, he was, words were coming out, the vocabulary was forming quite well. He would recite nursery rhymes. I mean, you know, everything was sort of falling into place nicely. Then between the age of about 1.5 and 2 years, we noticed some changes, and Sahel just sort of started to regress. By Sahel's second birthday, he was a much quieter child. I mean, I don't want to say withdrawn and in his own world, but compared to how he had been, yes, there was a noticeable change. And of course, you know,
was he speaking by then? Because you said he started doing reciting of. Did that regress as well, or
yes? Actually, by the age of 2, most of his speech had disappeared.
Interesting.
Even things like being able to use a spoon to eat. That, you know, those sort of
motor skills.
Yes, fine and gross motor skills started to deteriorate as well. I mean, he had to relearn everything. And that in itself has been a really long journey. initially we took Sahel to see a paediatrician in Sydney. I think he was about 3 years old at the time.
Yep.
The paediatrician sort of said, oh no, maybe he's just a shy child, give him another year in a nursery and see how you go.
Yep.
But I always feel that as a parent, you know your child the best.
Yeah.
And a doctor may see your child for 5 minutes, but they don't live with your child.
They don't know their signs, their
nuances.
Yeah, of course.
And you know how to read your child. I really truly believe this, that you have that connection with your child as a parent. And I was still very, very concerned, but Sahel went into a nursery for a year. By the end of that year, we didn't really, he hadn't improved in any way, and he was still quite withdrawn and unsure how to
communicate with,
not just communicate, but sort of interact socially with other children.
Yeah. And he was 4 by then, so that by that time they start socializing. So
exactly, not just sort of parallel playing. The children will be interacting with each other. So we started taking Sahel to therapy sessions, speech and occupational therapy. Initially, in Sharjah. Initially, Sharjah and Dubai.
So you had to travel.
Yes, so Sahel would come home from school, from nursery.
Oh my gosh,
he'd have a quick lunch, change clothes, and then we'd be in the car. And this would be 4 or 5 times a week.
And so that trip from Fujairah, how far is that?
Sharjah, it was.
You talk about 1 hour 40 minutes.
1 hour.
Yeah.
That's a long trip. And
it was
for a little kid to have to go and then go through, have to go and learn and be, I guess that would have been hard.
Yeah, well, he'd go and have a 30-minute session with an occupational therapist, followed by 30 minutes with a speech therapist.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great.
And it was working?
It was working.
Okay,
it really did help him.
Okay. And how often do you go to the mountains with it? Because you said you used to go a lot when he was little and you lived there and then you moved over. Do you make this a regular trip for him, or how? Because you said that calms him. And
we try to.
Yeah,
we try to. It's not as easy now living in Abu Dhabi. As you mentioned, when we were in Fujairah, every week we'd be wandering through the mountains or even along the coastline of Fujairah. I drag these guys to archaeological sites all the time. But as I said, for Sahel, they're fun. They are adventure playgrounds. It's all about exploration and learning through exploration, which I think is probably one of the best ways to learn.
Well, that's what they're saying now. They're actually kids should not be at school. They should be out and exploring, right?
And learning through play.
Yeah, exactly.
Since moving to Abu Dhabi, we sometimes now go to the desert.
Okay.
So we have, on a weekend, we found a nice quiet place in the desert as well.
Yeah.
And Sahel really enjoys that because it's very much a sensory, tactile experience for him.
Yeah.
And actually that was part of the influence for the second story as well, the second book.
Because there's a big misconception about the Middle East, and let's just bring it out there. We're both Australian, so and everyone always how can you live there? What, are you a crazy person? So unsafe. I have a friend visiting me who's so liberal, but she's like, "Are you sure it's going to be safe?" I'm like, okay. And that kind of you realise, well, you're not really that aware and liberal then if you have to ask that.
That's right.
Why would I live somewhere firstly and put my kids through danger
in a situation like that?
I've got 2 children, so what made you stay and fall in love with the country and make this home and to be proud of it as your home? What are the things that you connect with?
I think it really is a sense of community.
Okay.
I really do feel as though in the UAE, because I don't know, it's sort of hard to put into words, but I feel as though there is a real sense of community here, and we do have people from many different nationalities, from very diverse backgrounds. Yep. But it seems to work, and there is that that lovely sort of feeling of tolerance and acceptance, and also I like the fact that I can learn about another country or another culture just by meeting people.
Yeah.
And then you go on holidays over summer or spring break, and then you come back and you're like, oh yeah, you can say to someone, I just went to your country.
Yeah.
And it starts an amazing conversation, but there is that sense of community, and people will reach out to you in the UAE, especially with this book.
Yeah.
I've had so many different people contact me, even parents.
Yeah. I contacted her, literally. I was like, I want to know this woman. This is a great book. I did. I was like, whoever did this is fantastic. It's phenomenal. And so, and I don't think in other countries you're right. It's an acceptance here. People if you just people are willing to praise and help and support, and I do feel that it's not everywhere. So it is special in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, parents have reached out to me and they've said, so my daughter is on the spectrum and she loves this book.
Yeah.
And, they'll tell me what, in particular her daughter, she'll tell me what in particular her daughter really likes about the story, and then I get to meet some of these families as well at community events, and also just the sense of opportunity in the UAE. You've reached out to me. We're filming this now. Newspaper journalists have reached out, so there have been some great stories in the press. And all of that helps to spread this awareness, and it helps create a better future for Suhail and for children like Suhail. So I just think, it's that sense of community, people sort of banding together,
from all over the world, and all
helping
having that
each
as a
other,
barrier.
promoting each other, or their projects.
Exactly.
I think that's probably the thing I like best. That it just has a real positive feeling to it.
And if for someone coming to the UAE for the first time, as you are an archaeologist and you know this land very well, where would you tell, where's your, that spot of peace, or that, that desert, or that mountain, or that you're like, oh my God, this is like a piece of heaven. Like, and I have a few places like that, but where do you have that? Where's that spot in the UAE, that piece of heaven?
Actually, it's Wadi Al Hail in Fujairah, where the book is set. It really is.
Everyone go to Wadi Al Hail, because that is where the book is set, and that is a little piece of heaven.
It is. It's a beautiful, beautiful, peaceful spot.
And is a village there and now, or no, not anymore?
Yes. The old village is still there.
Okay.
The farms are actually still being used, so you can wander down in the wadi. The water spring is still there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's archaeology there that dates back to the Bronze Age.
Okay. Brilliant.
So there's a lot of rock art there as well.
Yep.
It really is quite an amazing place. There's a lot going on in this sort of one valley, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you for having the both of you on the show. It's an honor, and I look forward to reading the next book and seeing the movie and everything else.